When I was growing up, with two older brothers. It was easy to say that I was not the one to get in trouble very much. My two older brothers took care of that quite easily. But in those times that I did mess up, and it was kind of the same things over and over again, I would always say to my mom, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And after a while, her response was always the same. It was, "I forgive you, it's fine, but I would rather you stop saying you're sorry and actually change the way that you act. Change your actions so that you don't have to continually come back and apologize for the same thing over and over again." It was this vision of mercy, this idea of mercy that is endless for our God, that came to my mind as I was thinking about this time in my life. My mother showed to me God's own desire for each of us. God's mercy is always there. God's forgiveness is always available to us. But God is always calling us to take that mercy and to do something with it, to change our lives for the better. I believe that's what Jesus is trying to tell us today. He heals the 10 lepers, and one returns giving thanks. And I'd bet for sure that the leper didn't just go off from that encounter with Jesus and see his life as kind of going back to the leper colony and wallowing again. No, he was cleansed, he was renewed. He experienced God's mercy, God's forgiveness, God's salvation. He went from that encounter completely changed, like a completely new person. The line that the lepers called out to Jesus at the beginning of the gospel, "Master, have pity on us." That Greek phrase that they call out to him, eleison, Kyrie eleison. That might sound a little familiar to us. Sometimes during Mass, we begin the penitential rite with the invocations of "Lord, have mercy," Kyrie eleison, Lord, have mercy. It's this same calling out that the lepers had in the gospel today. This plea for pity, for the pity of Jesus, for the mercy of God to be upon them. And they were cleansed, they were saved, they experienced God's mercy and went about from there changed. At the beginning of Mass, when we experience this penitential act, this "Lord have mercy, Christ have mercy," I find it interesting what follows next. We don't just kind of go and sit down and read the gospel, read the readings. But what follows on Sundays after the penitential act is the Gloria, is the praise and glory of our God. Praise and glory and thanksgiving for the mercy that we ourselves have just experienced. It's this mercy, this forgiveness that is at the heart of the gospel. But it is taking this mercy and going about from there being changed in our lives. In our first reading, Naaman, a great Babylonian general who himself was a leper, came to the prophet Elisha seeking God's salvation, seeking a miracle. Now, he didn't come necessarily believing in the God of Israel, but he came hearing about the wonders that this man had done. And when he finally experienced God's mercy, God's salvation through his cleansing, he couldn't help himself but to go about being a changed person. He asked Elisha for 2 mule loads of earth from that place. It's kind of interesting. Why would he want to take dirt back with him? It's because in the ancient world, worship of a god was linked to the earth, was linked to a particular place. So by taking a part of the land of Israel back with him, he was saying that I cannot go back unless I bring the God who has saved me along with me. I cannot go back to my old way of life without a remembrance, without something to grasp onto, saying that I have been changed, that I cannot be the same person anymore. When we come to Mass, we experience that same transformation. Whether we necessarily realize it or not, every encounter in the Mass, every encounter of the Eucharist changes our lives for the better. It changes our lives so that we become completely different from the way we were before. We become more and more like Christ. When we go out into the world from Mass today, let us take that joy, let us take that mercy, let us take that thanksgiving that we have experienced here at Mass with us. We are forever changed in the sacrifice of the Mass. We are forever changed going out into the world. And others should know about that change in our lives. Others should know about our God through our living of our faith, of our living of thanksgiving of our God. Thinking back to that experience in my own life as a child, going back to my mother saying, I'm sorry, over and over again. It took me a while to figure this out, that I had to change, but not just for my own sake, but also for the sake of my brothers, for the sake of my family, for those around me. Because changing a little part of my life ultimately can change my whole life. Maybe parents who have little children who do the same thing, or older siblings who have little siblings who always do the same thing over and over, apologizing. Let us be examples of mercy to them. Let us always remind them of God's mercy for us as we show them mercy. When we're at school or when we're at work and people are bugging us, we're trying to get our work done, let us not take that malice, let us not take those bad anxieties to heart, but let us show others how we have been changed through our encounter with the divine. Let us show others the mercy that God has shown us. When the lepers and Naaman went off after their healing, they were forever changed. They were forever changed for the better, to go about and to live new lives thanks to God. And so may we, coming together for this sacrifice of the Mass, may we give praise and thanksgiving to our God, but always remember that we go out from this place changed for the better, to bring that same message of mercy, forgiveness, and salvation to those we encounter.